Way Cast. We are the way to a Great Marriage Cast. I'm sorry, I get a little confused
Part of the
sometimes.
white cast.
There's too many casts on here. And so tonight we are in my sister's book, My Life Story by Sandra Kay Baugh Carlson, and we are in a new section, and we had a cliffhanger. Does everybody remember what the cliffhanger was?
Cliffhanger.
Do you have any siblings? I asked if my sister would include me as a sibling.
You're her only sibling. What are
I
you
was
talking
just
about?
joking, but anyway. Okay, now I got it set up. I think where I can see if you guys make any comments. So sorry about that, uh, but
And we're running late tonight.
and we're running late.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Sissy May is still up. I'm sure it's they're 3 hours behind
Yeah.
me. So I told my parents I wanted a little brother or sister from early childhood. As the years progressed, Mom explained that they would welcome another child, but God didn't hadn't sent them one. When I was 11 years old, we were sitting on the front porch one day in the fall of 1967, and Mom told me that she was going to have a baby. She wanted to wait a while to share the news with others and asked me not to tell anyone.
Oh boy.
I was usually very good at keeping secrets, but this news was just not was too exciting to keep to myself. Uh, what stands out in my mind about her pregnancy was her craving for cinnamon rolls. Yes, I still crave cinnamon rolls
Yeah.
till today.
I've not fixed you none in a while.
Yeast.
Yeah.
That's definitely if I'm sick when I was in the
Yes.
hospital with my surgery, I wanted yeast.
Cinnamon rolls.
Cinnamon rolls, yes. Mom always had a sweet tooth. Me too. She was an excellent cook, including delicious pies, layer cakes, cookies, donuts, and cinnamon rolls, all made from scratch. The first item on her meal plan was dessert. We had fresh cakes and pies every day, her favorite. However, she was fixated on cinnamon rolls and donuts during her pregnancy. Yeah, I crave donuts too.
You do, even now.
Whenever when I had surgery, about once a week when I came home from school, there were cinnamon rolls and donuts. Sometimes both, cooking in the kitchen with the irresistible yeast cinnamon fragrance. Sorry,
Yes.
Sissy, but I can't help but comment. Mom, I always got the donut holes. I had just turned 12 2 weeks before the night Tony was born. Her birthday's the 12th, mine's the 25th.
Right.
Uh, Mom and Dad had already gone to bed, and I was finishing a movie on the television. At about 10:45 p.m., Dad came bursting out of the bedroom, hopping on one foot, trying to put a sock on the other. He exclaimed, "Get ready! We are going to the hospital. The baby is coming." My response was, "Can we wait 15 minutes? The movie is almost over." Of course, we didn't wait, but we did go a couple of miles out of the way to stop by Grandma's house to take her with us to the hospital.
Oh.
Grandma and Grandpa were sound asleep, but we just had to wait a few minutes, and Grandma was rushing to the car. My parents could have left me with Grandpa, especially that late, but they always included me in anything that happened in the family. This baby was as much mine as theirs. So I was going to the hospital. In those days, we didn't know the sex of the baby before birth, so we had names both for chosen for both. The boy would be named Tony, but the girl would be Melissa or Michelle.
Oh, okay.
I almost was a Melissa.
You was a Melissa.
I hadn't decided yet. The nurses enjoyed asking me whether I thought the baby would be a boy or girl. The name I had chosen, and they laughed. Then I said I would be born in 3 hours.
What?
Let me read that again.
Yeah, that didn't sound right.
The nurses enjoyed asking me whether I thought the baby would be a boy or girl. The name I had chosen, and they laughed when I said he would be born in 3 hours. I hoped it would be a boy, as I wanted a brother, and he was born about 3 hours later. In fact, she refused to come up with a girl name.
She knew you was a boy.
Yeah, she came up with the name Tony after Tony.
Danza?
No, not Tony Danza.
I'm kidding.
Tony Curtis.
Oh, Tony Curtis.
Yes, he was heartthrob at the time, supposedly.
Yeah. I thought maybe Tony Orlando and Dawn.
At that time, it's a wonder I wasn't named Dick for Dick. Let's see, I'm not a crook.
Nixon?
Nixon, yes. She had
I'm not a crook.
She had a picture of him on the wall.
She did?
Yes, I don't know. He was apparently a heartthrob too. But at that time, the mother gave birth with just the doctor and nurse to help. Dad, mom, grandma, and I sat in the waiting room. There was also a rule that no visitors under 16 were allowed.
Oh no!
I know I'm experiencing that with my grandmother when she was sick. Until then, I had never been away from my mother overnight. The first day after Tony was born, Dad took me outside and we looked up at the window to Mom's room on the second floor, and she waved at me.
Oh!
I wanted to see her and my new baby brother. So the second day after Tony was born, Dad sneaked me up the back stairs.
Dad Baugh.
He kept a lookout for the nurse while I slipped into Mom's room and later crept down the hall to look through the glass into the nursery for my first gaze on the best looking baby I had ever seen.
Oh,
look
at you too.
Now she leaves out of the story, I don't know why, but Dad had her to dress up, wear her most oldest looking dress and put on makeup so that she looked older than 12 years old. Whereas that's impossible for me and her when we were 12. We probably looked like we were 2.
Me and Dwayne too. we look like we were. Yes.
And so
6 years old.
And so the next question is, who was your best friend when you were a child? My next door neighbor, Debbie Redmond. Oh, I forgot about her.
Who?
Debbie Redmond.
Debbie Redmond.
Yes. Debbie Redmond was a year and a half older than me. She had 3 older sisters and twin younger brothers. As any only child up to that point, going to Debbie's was like entering a different world. They made me welcome, and I spent countless hours playing, eating, helping with chores, and often spending the night. When it was time to come home, Mom would ring the dinner bell, or if we were inside watching TV, she would call on the phone. When I was small, Debbie's older sister would scare us several times when they had put up a tent in the backyard. They put Debbie and me in the tent, zipped it up, and then they would try to grab us through the canvas of the tent.
Oh.
It was thrilling, but I started having nightmares about monsters. Mom had to ask the girls not to play that game with me until I was older. When I was about 7 years old, her family moved to Florida, and I was devastated.
No.
What? They lived over there when I grew up. Anyway, my best friend and confidant were gone. About 2 years later, I saw a large moving van near their house. I tore over there on my bicycle and discovered my friend had returned.
Like you
Okay.
hadn't given her a chance.
Okay, yeah. That was one of the happiest days of my life. Debbie was
was bad.
was athletic and more daring than I was. She broke her arm twice during her childhood.
Oh, goodness.
I didn't have any broken bones. Neither did I.
Neither did I.
Mom must have been a good mom.
Yeah, me or Dwayne, neither one got.
She often dared me to do things I wasn't comfortable doing, such as jumping out of the barn loft onto a hay wagon.
Yeah.
Jumping off the end of the porch over a large rose bush and climbing higher in a tree than I wanted. I was very cautious, and she pushed me like an older sister. There were no recrimination, no recrimination when I didn't take the dare, but she was effective with her praise when I succeeded. Her property had an orchard with mature and gnarled apple trees.
Gnarled.
What? Okay, yeah, it's gnarled. They're
curly and cricky.
Yeah, they have knots and all kinds of
Like,
stuff. One of them had pieces of wood hammered into the trunk to make a ladder rung up the tree's main fork, about 6 feet off the ground. I was happy just getting that far. Debbie would shimmer up the tree, climbing branches until she reached the perch about 20 feet off the ground. She always encouraged me to join her on that comfy branch, and I did one day. We were sitting side by side on a thick branch with our feet resting on a smaller branch just below. Debbie decided she wanted to trade places and stepped on the small branch. As she put all her weight on it, the branch broke.
Oh, no.
And she fell to the ground right before my eyes. I was terrified. She was hurt, and it took me a few seconds to gather my courage to climb down out of the tree to help get her mother. That was the second time she broke her arm.
Oh, wow.
Then Debbie's little brother got old enough to play with us. We had terrific times playing baseball, war, hide and seek, riding bicycles. We had few toys. We used our imaginations.
Yeah.
Debbie was 2 grades ahead of me in school, and they were members of a different church. So the only other time we saw each other was to ride the school bus together, about a 10-minute ride.
Oh, boy.
When I was in 6th grade, I was still going to the elementary school, and Debbie was in 8th grade at the high school. The school bus would pick up the elementary students and drive a mile down the road to the high school and pick up those students. Debbie wanted me to save her a seat, and she liked the back seat of the bus. 2 7th grade rough girls got on the bus before Debbie, holding both back seats for older boys who rode the bus. When they got on the bus, they threatened and bullied me, making me move to a different seat. Mom and Dad's approach was to teach me how to take of myself. I guess she means take up for myself and handle difficult situations on my own. Dad put a brick in my purse, and I practiced using it as a weapon. only to
Oh.
be used if needed. Yeah, he gave me a mace gun. Okay, the next day I was sitting on the back seat of the bus when those girls approached, making threatening gestures and remarks. As I told them to leave me alone, I could see Debbie at the front of the bus, frantically trying to make her way to the back. One of the girls asked me, and I attacked me, and I hit her with my purse up the side of the head. They never bothered us again. Now, using, and actually, Dad I think he got the brick, he made it at work, where he worked at Crane Plumbing.
Yeah.
He made a thin, it wasn't like an actual brick, I think it was like a thinner thing, the way the way I heard the story.
Yeah.
And Mom made little pouches on either side of her purse and sewed it into her purse. So it was a compilation effort.
Way to go, Mom and Dad Baugh.
Not having spending money and a little opportunity to earn any, Debbie started skipping lunch and saving her lunch money. By the time she got on the bus, she was starving. I always saved something for my lunch for her, such as a cookie or crackers, something I could wrap in a napkin and put in my purse. She was always grateful and excited to see what I had for her to eat. In my first 2 years of high school, I walked to Debbie's house every morning to catch the bus. We waited on her porch and we could hurry over the hill to the road when we saw the bus. During those 15 minutes every morning, she had an opportunity to give me a heads up about difficult things at school, such as teachers to look out for. I could confidently run anything by Debbie, and she gave me good advice. They took they took turns doing chores in her family, and one night after I had a delicious dinner at her home, it was Debbie's turn to do the dishes. When we finished, we noticed two large kettles or we had missed sitting on the stove. I suggested that we leave them and pretend we didn't see them. She said we might as well finish the job, and we did. Debbie was a good influence on me and taught me many things, including my first information about the facts of life. She had older sisters. There's something I don't remember about her mom. There's something about her mom and eating that Sissy told me, but I forgot what that was. Sissy said I put two of those thin bricks that Dad made in Mom's tooled leather clutch purse with a strap that went around my waist. Spending time with her family allowed me to enter the world of a large family with siblings, and I was proud to be considered one of them. And here is a picture of her and Debbie. I think this is on our Mom and Dad's front porch. The lag is rather long.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure you got plenty of time to look at it. There's a little rocking chair there too. It's interesting. Might tell more about where it was taken.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, she said.
Yes.
What? The next question is: what was your father like when you were a child? When I was growing up, my dad always worked full time at a job in town, and he farmed after work and on the weekends. He essentially had two full-time jobs. I remember him working the night shift at Somerset Refinery, where they turned oil into gasoline. During those years, he slept during the day, and we had to be quiet. When I was 6 years old, he started working for Crane Plumbing. He eventually worked up to an executive position that was the last job, which was his last job until he retired at age 65. When Dad was working on the farm, I spent a lot of time with him riding the tractor, bringing him water to drink, and being his shadow. When I was little, we had milk cows, and that he milked twice daily with electric milking machines at the milk parlor, quote unquote,
Milk parlor.
quote end quote. Actually, is how you say that, in the barn. During this time, we had tobacco, corn, and hay crops that Dad harvested from his and Grandpa's farm, about 60 acres altogether. As his job at Crane became more lucrative, he started renting out the tobacco so someone else did the job. And then we would start shadowing them. And switched to beef cattle, registered polled Herefords. The farm became pasture for cattle. The only crop Dad worked on was hay. When Tony was little, he suffered from allergies, and Dad purchased goats to so Tony would have fresh goat's milk to drink. Dad milked goats twice a day for 20 years.
Wow.
Yep. From the time I was 14 till I was 34.
Wow.
Yeah. Dad was raised with a strong work ethic. Yes, I wish I had half his work ethic. His parents were afraid of spoiling him, so starting when he was 5 years old, he spent his birthdays weeding, hoeing weeds from the corn crop with his father. His future Farmers of America FFA project in high school was to put out a strawberry patch.
Oh.
Dad and Grandpa planted 6/10 of an acre of strawberries in 1951 and made a $500 profit that first year.
Wow.
So they increased their crop to 1.5 acres.
Wow. That was a lot.
Yes, back then. He bought his first car with the money he got from the strawberries.
That's awesome.
In 1949 Ford, I think it was. In 1953.
Oh.
Dad was also thinking about ways he could make money. When he and Dad married and moved to Dayton, Ohio, he didn't have any trouble getting a job. They were anxious to hire a young man off the farm, off a Kentucky farm, everywhere he went because they knew those young men were strong and good workers. Dad was very strong, had street smarts to go with it,
Definitely.
and liked to help the underdog. He's valedictorian of his class, and so he was very intelligent. A muscle-bound bully he worked with at Crane Plumbing would pick on smaller and weaker men by lifting them and raising them over his head, barbell style. One day, Dad decided to show him up and say, "You can't do that to me." And he grabbed Dad, but Dad held on to the man's belt so that when he tried to pick Dad up, he was essentially trying to lift himself off the ground. He couldn't do it to Dad and stopped picking on him, on the other guys. I think they're actually Dad made him a $1,000 wager, but he didn't make him pay him whenever that he.
That sounds like Dad Bob.
Whenever that he won. It was about the moral of the thing anyway.
Yeah.
We moved into the house where I grew up in 1956.
56.
When I was 6 years old. That's not correct. Correct, when I was 6 years old, okay? Okay. It had been neglected and needed a lot of work. Mom and Dad did all the renovations. Dad handled the carpentry, plumbing, and electrical work, and Mom painted, put on wallpaper, and sewed draperies during my childhood with me as her helper. They finished all the renovations and then remodeled and redecorated many times. 6 weeks old, she said. Yes, it is. Okay, 6 weeks old. Okay. I
We
misread
need
there.
glasses.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Sissy was 6 weeks old in 1956. That's why it didn't make any sense to me when
Right.
I said 6 years old. And in fact, it was so bad there was a hole in the living room floor in front of the window there.
Oh.
The weather had came in there and out of the floor apparently.
Hmm.
Dad, here's a picture of Dad riding Lady in 1965. Lady was Sissy's horse actually. She was a Tennessee. She was a quarter horse. She was a barrel racer, and so we kept her until she passed away. She's buried up there around the pear tree somewhere,
Well.
or on the other side, I guess. Dad loved riding horses. He had grown up with mules used to plow the fields. His first horse was a quarter horse named Lady that had been a barrel racer. Okay, I got ahead of myself again. He rode a lady on many trail rides and around the farm, but found that riding hurt his back, so he purchased a registered Tennessee walking horse, Rena.
Had 5 of them myself.
He
Loved them.
he said the smooth gait was like sitting on a rocking horse. He bred Rena, and she had a colt named Rebel.
Rebel and Rena.
When Rebel was old enough, Dad broke Rebel to ride with a saddle. He enjoyed riding Rebel up the road to his parents 1 mile away and on trail rides with groups and with horse enthusiasts. Yes, Rebel was a rebel, okay? Dad had to keep him, to train him not to back up whenever he got on him. He backed him into a electric fence, and one time Rebel tried to throw him off into the pond. And one time Rebel rolled over with the saddle on him over the fence between the garage and the horse lot.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, he was just, I don't know how in the world Dad rode him.
He was like my Uncle Cecil.
Yes, he was.
He was a wrangler.
He was like a drunken Bronco.
Yeah.
Dad broke him. He was actively involved in church where he grew up, White Oak Baptist Church. He served as secretary, adult education teacher, and van driver. He had a beautiful voice and could sing lead, tenor, and bass. I can't sing tenor.
No, you have a beautiful bass voice.
In high school, he was the class soloist and always open to sing for any occasion. He served as choir director and congregational song leader for several years at church. They didn't have a public address or PA system, so he had to sing loudly. He strained his voice and was never able to sing again. So yes, by the time I came along, he didn't sing in church, and so he had me to go. He said to go up there next to Roger Dalton and sit with him and learn how to sing bass.
Oh.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to learn from Dad. He was always doing things without complaining. For those he loved and respected, even with his busy schedule.
Yes, true.
He stopped by his parents' home every day after work to see how they were doing. Every day, Mom talked to him on the phone at lunchtime. Most days, there was something she needed him to pick up from the store on the way home. Of course, that's what women do, isn't it?
That's right.
Well, you pick this up on the way home.
Right.
If she were in the middle of preparing dinner and needed an ingredient, Dad would run to the store and pick it up for her. Mom liked to entertain guests, especially family, and on those occasions, Dad would help her by washing the dishes and mashing the potatoes. He made the best mashed potatoes in the world.
Oh, Sissy told me.
when Dad was old enough, I guess because he could match him up really good.
Yeah,
So,
too strong.
he was so strong.
Yeah.
And so when Dad was old enough, or Tony, I'm sorry, when Tony was old enough for Cub Scouts, Dad became his scout leader and took the troop on camping trips and planned activities. Dad went Dad went with Tony when he played Little League Baseball, and when Tony was in marching band. Many nights, Dad sat in the high school parking lot until midnight waiting for the bus to arrive from away football games. I'm sorry to comment, Sissy, but I've got to add some things. He actually was my coach in Babe Ruth baseball. He was the assistant coach, and then he also, Mom and Dad, sometimes it would be 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night morning that we would finally get home from these band competitions. Yeah, so it was very late. He was always attuned to the need of others and was an exceptional caregiver. He took care of his parents hands on from when Grandma was diagnosed with cancer in 1978 until Grandpa died at age 97 in 1998. I'm thinking he was just a few weeks from being 98, but anyway.
I think that's what Dad said.
When Mom was diagnosed with lung cancer in 2008, he was her caregiver and companion until she died in 2011. From Natalie's childhood, he helped Tony care for and transport his 4 children. I was blessed to have a father that had unconditional love for his children. In my lifetime, he helped me in more ways than I can count. He was a good listener, and as a young woman trying to determine my life goals and ideologies, he helped me talk through those issues without criticism and trying to impose his own will. My earthly father was perfect, but his unconditional wasn't perfect, but his unconditional love helped me develop a better understanding and relationship with my heavenly Father, who is perfect. You know, they spent many of a Sunday afternoon out there writing Lady and Rena are rebel and talking to each other round and round in the east lot of the house. Me and Dad in 1956. I guess that's the chair that she is talking about that made it into the playhouse. Looks like it.
What's it say underneath it?
But I often wonder, Dad and me in 1956. I always thought it was at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Oh, she looks like me and BJ.
Really?
Peter.
That's
Peter.
true.
Me and Peter there.
Yes.
She looks like me and Peter there.
You do, sissy. You look like Tony and Peter.
That is the gray chair in the playhouse. Yes. Okay, let's see how we're doing on time. We have ran out of time. I'd love to read the whole book.
We never want to stop.
But I hate to do over 30 minutes. So the cliffhanger is what major historic event do you remember happening during your childhood? Ooh,
Tune in.
Yes, tune in. I can guess what it is.
What'd she say?
LaRonda, hope you are feeling better.
Trying, yes.
She didn't go to church tonight. She actually felt better yesterday.
I did.
And but she I think that because she hasn't eaten because the antibiotic is making her sick, that she is weakened. She's feeling weak.
Yeah.
So I guess I need to pour chicken broth down her throat.
I'm trying.
And see if that works. I think that the chicken broth would bring a dead man out of his.
I think so.
Up out of the casket. It has me a few times.
I have gave you chicken broth when you were
thank
really
you,
bad.
Sissy, for teaching us how to make
We love you,
chicken broth.
Sissy. Yes.
And so, we encourage you to hit the thumbs up button, then ask questions and comment, Sissy gave an example, but if you ask a question that's good enough, we may use it for our Waycast. So you will have to give up the rights to that question.
Yep.
Love you, Sissy. And then subscribe. Not only here, but on Rumble. We've picked up. We're at 10 subscribers over on Rumble. I am actually monetized over there. This month we have earned 2 cents on
Wow.
Rumble.
Wow. Hey, high five.
So anyway,
That's
so
funny.
maybe I really need everybody to move over to Rumble so I can really make a lot.
Or just subscribe to
start
Rumble.
making a lot of money off this.
Yeah.
It'll all go to our Christ Recovery
Ministry.
And it'll all go to helping people in recovery.
Yes.
I can guarantee you that.
100%.
And so, or to promote the Waycast. And so, but with that, we also encourage you to comment, ask questions, share. I encourage you to share Against All Odds. It's pinned to the top of the Waycast, and it's a great evangelistic tool. If you can think of somebody that doesn't know the Lord as their personal Savior, send that to them, but pray first of all that they'll be receptive to it and that they'll watch it all the way through. And then lastly, hit the
ding, ding, ding.
The ding-a-ling in your
notification.
So that you can be notified whenever that we're live, so that you can come on and harass us in person.
Right.
And so with that, we say
good night, until we meet again. Adios, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, till then.
And though it's always sweet sorrow to part,
You know you'll always remain in my heart. Good night, sleep tight, and blessed dreams to you. Here's a wish and a prayer that every dream comes true. And now till we meet again, adios, au revoir, and we will say
Good night. We love you.
and don't ever forget, you are truly loved. And with that, we say good night.
Friends, there you have our show. Hit songs and fashions through